Hey everyone, PTL here. Getting ready to do the second video of Q&A. But first I'll share a Bible verse. Psalm 116:15 says, "Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints." And boy, that verse hits close to home today. It's been very difficult for many dealing with this virus pandemic that's been going around and spreading quickly. And a dear sister in the Lord who actually supported me an awful lot on my hike through the comments, was always encouraging and enjoying the hike. And she especially enjoyed the clips from Maine because she grew up in Maine. But she's now with the Lord, and she was precious in his sight. She is precious in his sight, and this day she is with her Lord and Savior. And that's the great hope we have as believers. So I hope you're trusting in the Lord Jesus Christ, because precious in his sight is each one of his saints when they go to be with him. All right, everyone, on to the Q&A. Praise the Lord. So Mark Sheffield asked, do you find you were more likely to get a blister when it rained? And actually, I don't think I was more likely to get a blister when it rained. I was very prone to getting blisters early in the hike, mainly because I was putting in a lot of miles. And, I started out wearing the Merrell Moabs, which are a little heavier, thicker shoe with some leather in it. And so I was definitely prone to getting them. It was more from going fast and doing big miles. And I found that the best thing for me when my feet started to heat up was to take a 5-minute stop. I would just stop for 5 minutes, sit on a rock, sit on a log, take my shoes and socks off, and just sit there for that short amount of time would cool them off. If I was near a stream, I would soak them in the stream. That cooled them off faster and stayed cool. But I found that when it rained, my feet actually got wet, and it would actually cool my feet off and make it less likely, at least for me, to get the blisters. I think there was at least one time where I purposely walked right through a deep stream just to get my feet wet and cool them off because they were getting hot. So the rain actually cooled my feet, and I think helped keep me from getting blisters. My big problem was my feet heating up. So thankfully, I mentioned in one video that I was getting a blister, but I never developed actual blisters. I would feel those hot spots or my feet warming up, and I would stop and cool them off, put body glide or foot glide on them. And sometimes I'd put KT Band-Aid tape on there and on the hot spots. And doing all those things, before it was too late, really kept me from getting blisters. And I didn't get one full blister that broke on the trail. So that was great. So Princess Gadget asked me, did you carry shoes? First of all, hello, Princess Gadget. For those who don't know, Princess Gadget is hiking the trail in 2021. She started last year, so you can check out her YouTube channel. I think if you do a search on Princess Gadget, you'll find her. But she asked if I carry camp shoes. I did. I carried lightweight sandals. They were kind of a hard rubber shoe. And I did buy Crocs at one point in my pre-hikes. And the Crocs were actually heavier than my sandals, so I actually returned those. And the sandals worked out great. When I went into camp, I often took my shoes off and put those sandals on. And there were times where I would sit to cool my feet in a stream, and sometimes I'd pull out those sandals and put them on while I was soaking my feet. So sandals came in handy, and I used them quite a bit. So Princess Gadget also asked, did you have trouble hanging your food? And I have to admit, there were times I did have troubles. There are times you would throw your rock up, and you want this to happen every time. You have a nice branch, you throw the rope up on a rock, and one shot it goes over, it comes down, lands perfectly, and you have your rope ready to hang your bag. There were other times I would throw the rock, miss. It'd take me 10 times to get it before I caught it. But usually you got it. I usually tried to stop before it got dark because it was much easier to find the branch to hang it over when it was light. but there were a few times where I did hang a rope in the dark, and didn't seem to have a problem as long as you have a flashlight. Pay attention to where you're going so you don't get lost, and usually with the flashlight you can find a branch and get a rope up over a branch and hang your food. I did have 2 occasions where I had problems hanging it. The first one, I was staying near a shelter. I decided that night to camp in my tent because there was a sign in the shelter about COVID. But I set up my tent, and then I threw the rock probably 100 times and could not get it over this branch I was trying at. Probably a good thing I couldn't, because a Boy Scout troop came in late. They ended up staying in the shelter. They had tent set up where I was trying to hang that rope. But before they got there, I did finally throw one good shot. It went over my branch, but unfortunately it went over the little tree next to it and wrapped around it. It actually got wedged into a little side branch on that tree, and I couldn't get it out. And so the tree was nice and small, and what I ended up doing is I shimmied up that little tree with my bare feet, short sleeve shirt, shimmied all the way up. It was dangerous. Thankfully, I didn't fall. Got it out, shimmied back down. And when I got down, I did have some scrapes on my arms and my feet. So probably wasn't smart going up there barefooted, but it was easier to climb. That was one time. Another time, I threw it over an easy branch, but it did a loop over the branch the second and third time and got stuck. Fortunately, it wasn't a lot of rope that wrapped around, and I was able to pull hard enough, and the rope broke right near where it wrapped on the branch. And so I lost a couple feet of the rope there, but I was able to continue to use that rope the rest of the way. Another thing I'll say is I used a double-braided nylon rope. That rope is much better for your hands and pulling your bag up. It's softer. So as far as cutting your hands, some of those newer ropes that have like a wax on them, they're very thin, and they can cut your hands when you're putting weight on it and pulling it up over the branch. However, they're probably going to last longer. My double-braided nylon would get frayed. It did break near the end of the hike, and I was able to tie a knot off, and that one rope got me through the whole trip. But, you have your trade-offs. Double-braided nylon is a softer rope, not going to last as long. Mine lasted the whole Thru hike, but it's not as strong as some of the ropes you buy in a hiking store. But it's softer on your hands, so it made it easier to pull the bag up and get it back down. And Princess Gadget is asking me that question hikers don't like to answer, but I will. Did you ever sleep with your food? And I have to admit, yes, I did. I would say a good 90 to 95% of the time when I was sleeping in a tent or a shelter, I hung my food in my bear bag using the PCT method. And I think at least one occasion a bear tried to get my food, and that saved me by doing that. But there were times when especially when I got north up in the White Mountains, you're camping above tree line. There's small evergreen trees, fir trees, pines. They're packed tight together. There really is no good branch to hang your food up in. And in those situations, if I hang my food, there's no way it's going to be far enough from another tree or a branch good enough. And a bear if he's he's going to get it. If there's other animals, they're going to get it. I don't want the other animals getting it. I'd rather have it by me so I know they're coming. And so there were a few times when I was camping high up in the softwoods that I would actually bring my bag into the tent with me. I would make sure everything was in plastic bags. All my trash was in a Ziploc bag. And then I would put that inside the Z-Packs bag and make sure that was sealed up pretty well so the smells were minimal at most. So and I never had a problem. I was actually in a shelter one time, and guys were hanging their bags right on the wall of the shelter. I always made sure mine was right next to my head, even if there was no food in it, because the mice like to scurry in there and look for stuff for their nest, if you have leftover food in it. But I would wake up easy, and I had a number of times where I chased the mice off before they got to mine. But I woke up one time, and there were mice actually in another guy's bag fighting for whatever was in there. I tried to wake him up, but he didn't want to wake up, and I woke up another time, and one of the mice was standing right on top of his bag. So, but I did a few times take my food into the tent with me, but it was the exception, not the norm. So Jim Crosby asked me, how much weight did you lose, if any, during the hike? And yes, I did lose weight. I'm very lightweight as it is. Before I started my hike, I probably weighed somewhere between 140 and 150 pounds. And I still lost 15 to 20 pounds during the hike. I was actually under 130 pounds at one point of the hike. So yes, I lost some weight. I've gained it all back. Unfortunately, a lot of that gain is in the belly area, but I did gain the weight back and back up to where I was before I started the hike. So Finn had asked me what was my budget for the month to spend on the trail. Being the financial analyst I did, you would think I would have a budget, but I really didn't budget. I'm pretty good at conserving and living simply, but I spent a little more than I thought I would on the trail. I would say, I was out there for 4 months. I probably spent on the trail for food and lodging about $5,400, maybe $1,300 a month in food and lodging. That did not include equipment and clothes that I bought before the hike. You might have another couple $1,000s on equipment. My wife had bought me some nice equipment before I went. The Z-Pax 10 is expensive. I got a nice backpack, some of the other clothes. So that adds up to a couple $1,000s. But I had some trade-offs. Because I left so late, I was on the trail a lot shorter time. And so less expense because I'm out there less for food and lodging. But on the other hand, my wife and daughter came out to visit me a number of times. And when they came, they needed to have a nice hotel. And so I spent a little extra on hotels because of that, and splurged a little myself a few times. Instead of staying in a cheap hostel, got a nice hotel. But, and then offsetting that cost was I only took 3 zeros. So when you take zeros, you're paying extra either for a hostel or a hotel. Well, I only took 3 of those, so I saved there, but then spend extra when they came down to visit on the hotels. I also did eat a few more mountain houses than I needed to. The prepared meals that you buy, and they're a little more expensive than just buying, ramen noodles or buying the Norse sides. And so I spent extra on some of those, but because I was out there a shorter time and putting in big miles, I didn't want to worry about what I had to do in shopping. So if that was available, and sometimes it was, that's what I spent on. Another thing I did probably more than I would have if I was taking my time is my resupplies were coming from hostels, and the food is a lot more expensive in a hostel than it is if you're going into a grocery store. I mean, probably double or more the cost when you buy from a hostel. And I did a little more of that again because time was critical to me. There were times where I would just hike into a hostel, do my laundry, take a shower, and resupply so that I could get right back out on the trail in a couple hours and didn't even stay overnight. So that was a little more expensive. But so again, about $1,300 a month. I think they say you could do, $1,000 a month is a good estimate. And, if you want to go cheaper, you could. And if you want to live in luxury, you could spend a lot more than that. So Paul asked me, would you be open to sharing your planning spreadsheet? How did you set it up? How did you adjust on a daily basis? So actually, my wife Sue did the planning on the spreadsheet. I did help her set it up before I left, put in the formulas and get it ready. That's the type of thing I did when I worked with a lot of Excel spreadsheets. So I helped her set it up, but she's the one that ran the spreadsheet. She would put in a planned day. She's a planner. She would look at the mileage, have a good idea of what I wanted to do, and she would basically send me a copy of the next, say, 4 or 5 days. She would take a picture of it, plan of from where I was, where would be a good place to stop. She's the one that would look up in AWOL or Gut Hook what was available in town for resupplying of the hostels to stay at. She would give me options of hotels or hostels, and so she did all the planning and that stuff. As far as sharing it, I'm sure she would be willing. I'm willing to share it with you. You would have to maybe send me a friend request at Ken Good on Facebook, and let me know, though, in the comments that you're going to do that. And if I friend you, then we could hook up through Messenger and figure out how to send you a copy of the spreadsheet. But we'd be more than willing to send the final copy of it and, what's in there. It's basically you got the date, the day on the trail, day 1, 2, 3, where I'm starting from, where I'm going to, what the starting mileage is on either AWOL or Gut Hook, where I ended up, what's the concluding mileage, take the difference, and that's the mileage hiked for the day, total mileage from the beginning of the trail through that day. So that was basically, and then there were comments on the right if, things to look for, what to see, warnings, if there was a bridge out or whatever, my wife would put all that in the comments. And so it was really a good method and a tremendous help to me throughout the trip. It was really nice that I didn't have to do all that planning. I know that on a normal year, there's a lot of people out there, you get into a tramley, and usually when you're in a good-sized tramley, somebody in the group is a planner, and the rest of the people can piggyback off of them and, hey, we're going to go from here to here tomorrow, and that person plans it out and you follow, and then you have something you throw in. Maybe you cook a meal or whatever. But I was by myself most of the trip because of the late start and because of COVID. And the speed I was going, even when I hiked with somebody for, a half a day or a day, I usually was continuing on farther than them. And so I really didn't have a tramily the whole way. So Sue was really my tramily from home, and she kept me going. So Walk Tall is asking me, when you did your devotional every day, you quoted all those verses from Philippians. Did you memorize all of Philippians on the trail? And there's another question by Deborah Hill, similar. Did you memorize your Philippians verse each day or already have it memorized? So I did each day memorize the verse that I was sharing for the day so that I could quote it on the trail. Each day I often went back and reviewed whole sections that I had been memorizing and even chapters. By the end of the hike, I had memorized most of Philippians. I didn't have it down, packed. I kept going through Philippians since I finished the trail. I'm still going through it. And I can't say that I've been able to go from verse 1 of chapter 1 to the last verse of Philippians without making a mistake. I have all the verses memorized, but I have a hard time. I'll get to a certain verse and I can't remember which one comes next. If I peek, look at the first few words of the next verse, I have it and I'm off and running again. But I have not been able to go through the whole thing. I do make mistakes. The word might be plural and I forget to say the plural, or, I'll miss a that or an also or something like that. But I haven't been able to do it 100%, but I'm pretty close. I would say I have it all memorized. As far as in the past, years and years ago, I did memorize the book of Philippians. That was a long time ago, and so I lost most of it. A couple of years before the hike, me and another young man started memorizing it together. I was trying to encourage him to memorize and doing it myself. We got through maybe part of chapter 2, and that petered out a little bit. So I think thinking back on that was the reason that I wanted to go back through Philippians and try to memorize it on the trail, and turned out to be a big blessing for me going through the book. For all that time on the trail and spending a lot of time meditating on it, as well as sharing it with others. And hopefully it was a blessing to you as well. So Mike had asked, how are your post-hike aches doing? And I've shared a few times about them. Really, the main ache I've had post-hike has been in my feet. The balls of my feet have been numb. Had some serious calluses on the heels and sides of my feet. Just this past week or two, the calluses have completely healed up. You know, the skin kept growing out. My wife was actually massaging them and putting cream on them for a while, and actually using a file to file down some of the calluses, but then they would grow back out again. And but just recently, the last of the calluses seem to be gone, and still have some numbness on the balls of my feet, but it's definitely much better. And those nerves are growing out little by little, day by day. And based on what my wife said when I finished the hike, she expected it to take 6 months. So we're, about 3-4 months in from finishing my hike. So I still got a few more months before I'm expecting my feet to be back to normal. And other than that, really, I haven't had any problems. No other aches and pains. The shin splints, after using compression socks, no more problems there. The sciatic pain I had for that one-day hike, this exercise and prayers of everyone for me seemed to take care of that problem, and I haven't had any problem with that since. And really, I'm back to normal. So the only other question had to do with the kitchen, and I've showed you the kitchen. So now it's maybe we'll get out and do some fun things, do a few more hikes, and do a little exploring, and then I'll go on to the next project in the house, which is redoing one of the bathrooms. All right, everyone, have a great day. Praise the Lord.